Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Grasp Confidence, the best, I'm just going to go ahead and say that, the best personal development podcast there is. Why not? And it's the best because I have the coolest people. They're all folks from my LinkedIn network or social media network who are empowering, who embody confidence. So, my guest today, this is a funny story. My friend Catherine, she's a friend now, wasn't always a friend. We met this year. I found her on Facebook. We became friends. She bought my book, loved the book, became an advocate for the book. And now we're just good old buddies. And it's just proof we never know who's watching because you and I weren't connected. And then, boom, friendship happens, right? So, Catherine, introduce yourself if you wouldn't mind for me.
Awesome. Yeah. And Tara, one thing too I love about our relationship too is that we're constantly supporting each other and advocating for each other, which is such an important, I think, guideline for these days, especially with us women. Um, so, my name is Catherine Daw. I am your career strategist, your experiential expert, and your courage activator. What I really do is I empower the mid career professional to take control of their career and their life without sacrificing values, their integrity, or what they desire. So, really, I think we're here to talk about kind of that connection between confidence and empowerment.
Yeah, and knowing that, sometimes it's okay to start over midlife, right? And change the game and try something new. But that always, takes a lot of confidence. And sometimes we don't have that confidence, especially if we're, a little older, we're on a journey, we're not sure, maybe we're changing careers. It's interesting. But it is about having an empowering choice and, like you said, aligning with your values. I thought that was pretty powerful what you said there, and not sacrificing your values, right?
Right. And I think that's something really that we're taught, especially if you're of an age. I'm 57, so I've gone through that whole kind of training, societal training process of, I tell you what, I used to believe that work is what we did because we had to, so that we could then enjoy the time that we're not working. That's what I used to believe. And thinking back on it now, I thought, oh my gosh, no wonder I spent so many years in kind of a physical decline because I was constantly choosing against myself, and that, as you know, depletes our confidence, that depletes the trust we have in ourselves, which is key to literally be confident and feel empowered.
We shouldn't have to have a life where we take a vacation from it. It's an interesting concept, right? If you feel like you're in a job and you're just, looking forward to Fridays, but then come Sunday afternoon, you start already getting those Monday dreads. And that Monday dread has become such a well-known thing now. I even saw a commercial, I think it was IHOP. It was a couple, and it incorporated a Monday dread into its marketing promotional campaign.
Wow.
Yeah, enjoy kind of breakfast there on Sundays to beat the Monday dreads or something like that.
Right. Even mainstreaming the Monday dreads even more, and the fact that we're supposed to dread Mondays and it's normal to dread
Yes.
Mondays going back to whatever your career or job is.
Wow, and it doesn't have to be that way. I remember it being that way for myself. I remember on Sunday, actually, I don't know if I could ever totally shut down my brain. I'll be honest, because even if I was on vacation, I was working. But all weekend, I just in a constant, almost like a prison of thought, where it was rumination, 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 and I couldn't cut it off like years. And going to work, driving to work, or leaving the house. Before I left the house, a panic attack, crying in the shower. I'll admit to it. I've been there.
Hmm.
I think we all have to a certain, but it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Right. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's the key statement right there, is that it doesn't have to be that way. Um, we don't have to continuously choose against ourselves. One of the biggest things that I hear, and I admit I've had those, sliding down the bathroom wall, sitting on the crying on the bathroom floor moments. Absolutely. Like, how can this be my life? How did I get here? Which is not the question. It's not about how we got there. It's okay. We're here. What do we do now?
Right.
So I think we're taught that work is sacrifice. Well, we don't have to sacrifice. And one of the biggest things I hear is, I need to keep my health insurance. I'm
Oh,
staying in
yeah.
this job or this career or this position because I need the health insurance. Well, because you've developed all of these health issues, because you're constantly choosing against yourself, you've developed. I had severe anxiety,
Yeah.
and literally, that I couldn't turn off. Sounds like you are familiar with that scenario, and so many people are. But it doesn't have to be. Sacrifice never leads us to joy.
Wow, right there. It never leads us to joy. That is
Mm-mm.
so true. And I think we think, in terms of black and white, right? And that we don't see how we can bring harmony to something.
Mhm.
But honestly, the only limitation is within our minds, right?
Yes.
And to think that we need health insurance, at a specific job, and that's the reason why we're staying there. But like you said, did the job cause the health issues, right?
Right.
So keeping that job, keeping that same lifestyle where you're honestly miserable. And again, I my best analogy is thinking of it as a mental prison. I
Mhm.
literally was in a mental prison. But I started to get physical manifestations, right? I remember I was losing my hair. I had a skin rash develop. Um, like I said, I was even having heart flutters,
Mhm.
things like that, panic attacks, anxiety, depression. So this constant state, it took a lot, I guess we could call it faith, just self-trust for me to be able to take that next step and say, "You know what? I'm quote unquote safe here in a job, but honestly, is it going to lead to happiness in the future? Can I and how sustainable is it?" You know what? It
Right.
doesn't sound like either of us were in a very sustainable path, were we?
No. No, not at all. And we can always trick ourselves into saying, okay, I can do this. I can do this for a little bit longer. Until I figure it out. Well, God, I spent 2 decades trying to figure it out. And it doesn't work because it keeps us stuck in our head and forcing ourselves to be disconnected from how we're actually feeling. And again, each time you try to rationalize, again, you're up in your head then, as you said, trapped. So you're trapped on that hamster wheel of rationalization and saying, okay, I'm strong enough, I can do this. Well, each time you do that, you're choosing against yourself.
Ooh,
So if you are on especially long term, you will start. I also developed skin issues. I developed a pelvic floor issue. I developed I think they call it a plum pit here. So that's really from long term choosing against yourself. So, what you do is you whittle away at your trust in yourself because you don't trust yourself to choose what's right for you. You don't trust yourself any longer to choose your integrity and your values and your own desires over what you think you're supposed to do, you should do. Sacrifice is noble, no pain, no gain. I don't believe in any of that.
I know. All of these things just need to go somewhere, right? It's not the facts. And if we look around the world at the most successful people, let's just use one example. And we're just gonna say not that a measure of success necessarily is 100% wealth, right? But let's
Right.
just use that as a measure for sake of argument. If we look around the world at the most successful, wealthiest people, they delegate everything.
Mhm.
They, they have they design their work around their life, not their life around their work, right? So
Yes.
it's the complete opposite thing. And they go after their passions, they go after their ambitions. I can't even imagine somebody like Elon Musk sitting behind a desk and saying to himself, "I'm here for the health insurance."
Right.
Can you? I mean, it sounds hilarious, but honestly, it's the case. And how much of his innovation would be completely stifled, the world wouldn't be quite the same
Oh, absolutely.
if he chose that. And we'll call it a safe route, but honestly, there is no such thing as safe. We could get let go from our quote unquote 9 to 5 corporate jobs at any point in time. It doesn't matter how long you've been at them. There is no such thing as a safety net when you work for somebody else a lot of the times, right? So we have to align with our values. But
Hmm.
the first step before we align with our values is we have to know what they are,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something I didn't learn until later, that that was something I recognized. I knew I was sacrificing myself, but I didn't really understand what that meant.
Mm,
And I think it was Brene Brown initially for me that really brought that to the floor, that just made it accessible. Oh, I see. Yes, that's absolutely so. What are your values? And as you talk about in the book as well, you've got to have a clear vision. I know for me, and maybe you experience this as well, is that I had no idea how to even create one, or that I needed one. A clear vision of what I wanted and who I wanted to be in my life, not what other people wanted, or not what I thought I should be or should do or supposed to be or supposed to do. Not that, but what I actually wanted. And that has got to be, as you said, based in your values.
anchored, right? It's
Yes,
gotta
anchored.
be
Absolutely.
anchored. And you know what? If you're working for a company that does not align with your values, there is no forcing. You are always going to be the square peg trying to fit in a round hole.
Yes.
And what does that cause? It causes friction.
Hmm.
And anytime you have friction, you get these problems, they manifest in you. It can come in the form of physical ailments. It could come in the
Hmm.
form of mental health, right?
Yes.
Anytime you have friction, you really have to first identify who you are, what you believe in, and then you find something else that aligns with that. I think where people, fall short in as far as their careers go is they don't take the time to understand who they are, what they value, what they believe in, what's important to them. And then, like you said, with a vision, they don't have a very good vision, maybe of who they want to become, what they wanna do, what their passions are, and because they don't have that self-alignment first,
Hmm.
it's really then hard to bring in a third party like a company or a position to align with that. So we're always missing a gear.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
fascinating.
And
Uh
I think, it's a common theme, even on so example for example on LinkedIn. um and this is not dogging LinkedIn at all. However, the theory is, how do I fit into this job position being offered? Well, I'd like to have you flip that around and say, how does this job position fit me? Does it fit me well enough in its, as you said, values, in its integrity, in its design, even, that it fits me well enough that be I can thrive working there. And that's what it's about, thriving. It's not about surviving. And I know we're taught that. And so much of the initial model is based around fear. So we can't do our jobs if we're operating from a place of fear.
Mm.
So, if you are in a position where that's your main Feeling is fear. You're afraid of what your boss is going to say. You're afraid you didn't do this right, or you're afraid to say this. You can't. It's all about what is it limiting you to? Is it something you can't do? Is it something you can't say? Is it someone you can't be?
Mm.
Anytime that you're trying to fit yourself into like the square peg in the round hole, it causes that friction and will always be discordant with who you are.
Absolutely. I want to hit on, you said a really powerful four-letter word. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, I missed it."
I've been trying to keep those to myself.
That's hilarious. But the four-letter word you said, it did start with an F, but it's not what you think. Fear.
Mhm.
Fear. Let's go into that. When I think about fear, it's limiting beliefs. It's how many of our decisions in life are we basing on fear? So,
Yes.
really, I mean, anybody who's listening to this right now, do some self reflection.
Mhm.
How many decisions right now are you basing on fear? If you're in a relationship that is not suited to you and you're staying in that relationship, why is fear guiding you to stay in that relationship? Same thing with a job, same
Yes.
thing with friendships,
Mhm.
same thing with anything. Just let's all be self-reflective because no one's perfect. We all make fear-based decisions. We're human beings. But how many decisions are we making based on fear? And then the weight of those decisions, how big are they? Because if we're in a relationship, that could be really bad for our mental
Yes.
health, for our physical health, right? If we're in a relationship
Yes.
based on fear, same thing with a job. That is that, the fear is the quicksand that holds you.
Yes. And can take you even further under. Um, really, I believe kind of in the power of two things. So you can either empower yourself or disempower yourself. And anything that you do, you're choosing that actually disempowers you is fear based by nature.
Yeah.
And that then undermines your confidence, undermines your self trust. And now it can, as you said, be quicksand and can keep you until you can just really, if you can simplify it into your choice is either going to empower you and move you toward what you want, or it's going to disempower and you move you away from what you want. One's fear based, one is, let's say, I mean, it's ultimately it's love based, but that's where your courage is enacted. That's where your values lie. That's where your integrity lies, and that's where your desires lie in the whatever choice is going to empower you. It's going to create, it's not going to destroy. So the fear is really the factor that's clear to be able to determine.
Yes. I'm so glad that you're with me on that because I don't think people talk about it enough, right?
Mm-mm.
Um, but a big thing for me was limiting beliefs as well, and you just touched on that. If you have a limiting belief, you're gonna make fear-based decisions based on that limiting belief, right? And it's gonna cause you to show up differently in the world. And I know that for a fact because I went through this exercise to identify exactly what my limiting beliefs are. And you know what? I'll just be transparent. I took an Enneagram exercise. The limiting belief that it found was a limiting belief that I don't deserve love. Wow.
Wow.
Think about that. How powerful is that? Now, if I have a limiting belief that says I don't deserve love, guess what? That's going to cause me to show up really differently. Will I be able to deal with rejection so much? Will I be able to, I'm going to have these other things, these other areas in my life where it shows up. And if until I conquer that limiting belief that I don't deserve love, It's going to impact the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And I see that as, and we all have these shadow things to work out in our lives. That's why I said I'm not perfect. I'm a very transparent person. And while I have developed an immense amount of confidence from where I used to be, there is no such thing as the most confident person that stays that way 100% of the time. This is something, it's a journey. We're constantly bombarded all of the time with outside influence. And it's hard to keep that confidence level meter up. It's hard to keep that level of self trust up. But we need to all, again, this is a self reflective episode, I think. What are those limiting beliefs in your life that are holding us back?
Hmm. Yes, and it can be like a debris field almost. This is how I look at it.
Yes.
And all of those limiting, these they're beliefs, so they're not an actual tangible thing. So in essence, they're not real. They're created in our mind, being ego based as well. So as you recognize each one of those, you get to brush that out of the way, because what you desire is there. The only thing that's in between you and it are is that debris field, that all the fears, all the limiting beliefs, the things you believe about yourself, the shame that you carry, the judgment that you carry, that your regrets, maybe your resentments is a big one, big one, that I know for me, I had to really make a practice of not just dropping them, but literally disengaging from them. Because there's one thing I'll say: when we hold a resentment, we're holding other people hostage for something that they did. But
Yeah.
that means we're the keeper of that key, and we have to check all of those prison cells that we're keeping them locked. So look how much energy and everything is it's being expended from us to keep them in that place. So, we can, when we can drop the key and say, you know what, they're living their life, they're learning their own lessons. We don't have a right to keep them from theirs, and we don't have, what I mean, kind of a right to keep ourselves from our own, because that's what happens.
Absolutely. A lot of people say forgive and they tell you to forgive. And absolutely. It's not easy. It takes time. It's a journey. But I have learned the very same lesson. Until we can forgive, it's really hard to move past, right? It's the sludge that keeps us right where we are. In a way,
Yes.
we always have a foot in the past, and we're like
Yes.
constantly reliving the past if we cannot forgive. So the best thing you can do is to forgive. And I have found just gratitude practices have helped me overcome that, to forgive my past,
Hmm.
and to forgive others that have hurt me. And I don't want that foot in the past anymore, right? Because
Yes.
what if we have a foot in the past, how can we honestly, how far can we stretch? How far?
It's limited. It's self-limiting.
So limiting. And
Hmm.
I think of myself as just an example. I'm only 5'2". So if I if I have a foot in the past, and I can't do a split, y'all. So if I have a foot in the past, well, I'm not moving but a couple, maybe a foot anyway, right?
That's
It's a good
hysterical.
analogy.
But it's great. It simplifies it, though, to literally make a really clear point, because it's true. I always say that, again, I believe in the power of two things. You can either breathe life into what you want, or breathe life into what you don't want. You can breathe life into your past, poking at the bruise to make sure it still hurts, to make sure it's still a bruise, while you're making it still a bruise because you keep poking at it. Or you can breathe life into the present that leads to your future. It's really that choice between those two things. So take your foot out of the past, right? And you know what I mean? So that, and when you do that, the steps appear in front of you.
Ooh, you know what? I have found that exact thing.
Hmm.
You just, again, so much gold here. The steps appear in front of you. It
Mhm.
is honest to God so true. We don't know the steps, and it's okay,
Right.
and we don't have to know every single step. And I think that's where so many people, they're very analytical, lots of really smart people out there, they get bogged down and they think, "You know what? What's the next step? What's the next step?" This once you free yourself from those limiting beliefs, those limitations, those fear-based decisions, all of the sudden, picture yourself like you're on a shallow lake and stones are just rising out of the lake.
Mhm.
And once you go to one stone, the next one will appear, and the next, and so forth. And you might
Yes.
not be able to see very far ahead, but just keep taking those acts. You have to take action,
Yes.
but those acts of self trust. It's so
Yes.
powerful.
Absolutely. And, a lot of the super analytical people that are, and that's fear based too, is they need to know specifically that that step is there. They need to see it ahead of time. That's not certainty. Certainty is, if you actually want certainty, know that the step will appear. You can be certain of that. Be certain of that every time you disconnect from something from your past, you clear away a piece of that debris in the debris field. The step is there and will be there.
Absolutely, and it appears when you're ready. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
believer in that too, like, when the student is ready, the lesson is shown.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we're not ready, and you know what? We wouldn't appreciate it if it came to us,
Right. Or it would scare us.
or it would scare us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a big one
Yep.
too, and then we just
Mm-hmm.
do more baking in that fear-based decision.
Yes, absolutely. And that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Wow. So much to think about, but honestly, we've talked about a lot of analogies today that are really understandable and very self-reflective, and I just encourage everybody that's listening, we've talked about a lot of things, but if you're making fear-based decisions, write those down.
Yes.
Where are you happy in life, or are you not happy in life? What is, something that's depleting your energy? What are things that are gaining your energy? Put them into columns, 2 columns, deplete or gain, and you just start removing the things that are depleting, and you add to the things that are gaining, and all of a sudden, you're gonna be higher vibrational, you're gonna be a more grateful person, you're gonna be a happier, more fulfilled person, and because you're raising that level of vibration, that level of consciousness, that level of awareness and confidence and just positivity, guess what's also gonna be attracted to you? More of the same,
Yes.
more of the same. So now all of a sudden, friends are gonna start to appear out of nowhere that you've never met, kinda like you,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Kinda like you. And maybe opportunities will start to appear that you
Yes.
never knew could happen to you. But I feel like one of the most powerful lessons I learned in life, it's not the steps. You find a goal, find that, you know, thing that you need, and then ask yourself, who do I need to become to attain it? And you'll find your answer.
Absolutely.
So powerful. Wow. Talk about an empowering episode.
I'm glad we got to do this.
I know. But I just want to, mention one more time. Again, you and I did not know each other a year ago, right? And there are no she's got my book, I love it. There are no coincidences, there are no accidents. When we do something like write a book and share our story, there are going to be people out there, people that we don't even know yet, right?
Yes.
That we need to meet at a specific time for a specific reason when we are specifically ready. And you know what? That alignment happens and people
Yes.
find each other. And this is how we connect. And it does take some confidence. It does take us changing our patterns and behavior. It does take, removing limiting beliefs and reducing fear-based decisions. But you start doing that, your life is gonna change. Don't you think, Heather?
Oh, absolutely. And this is, you don't have to be afraid of this change. We talk about comfort zones. Well, they're not comfortable. Who are we kidding? They're not, and everything that you want and desire is on the other side of that. So, you can start acting today as with self-reflection. And that's, we gave you a lot to work with here today as well. And I encourage you to buy Tara's book too, because that is a huge help as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everybody who tuned in today. Don't forget to tell your friends about Grasp Confidence Podcast. Leave us a review. We love hearing from our fans. We want to see reviews. We want to see comments. What was your favorite episode, right? What were your favorite tips from this episode? Let us know. And we want to ultimately deliver very valuable content that helps a lot of people. So, again, tell your friends, spread the word, Grasp Confidence Podcast. But thank you so much for being on the show today, Catherine. I just appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Tara. It's been an honor and always a pleasure to, be in your community, a part of your community.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in today.